But yeah, just even for myself, I was finding like, just feeling like, oh my gosh, like despair almost, like, or just feeling like frozen. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how I should react. I don't know, like, should I be upset? Should I freak out? Should I just say whatever? So I feel like it's kind of hard to know how to feel. But after pulling my head out of my butt there for a day, I just realized like, okay, like I'm really committed to helping you, just helping the people in my community and empowering you physically, mentally, and spiritually during this time. Because it does seem like every conversation comes up around the coronavirus, and it's on every news channel you listen to. And so I think I just wanted to do a Zoom to let you know, like, if you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or stressed, like, you're not alone. And having an unknown future is kind of scary. And the pandemic is real and we need to be careful, but we can still be peaceful amidst the chaos. And so on today's call, we're going to talk about how to manage emotional eating and sugar cravings through all the chaos, because I know that's something that, this is a very emotional time, and I feel like emotional eating could ramp up for a lot of people, especially like sugar cravings, like being able to deal with stress. And there, like I said in my emails, like there's not going to be any sales on these calls. I just want to offer coaching, guidance, and support. So we're going to cover 5 things. We'll see how it goes. I don't want to like bore you guys to death either. So I want this to be really helpful. So I'm going to kind of go through the content that I prepared as quickly but efficiently as possible, so that way I can answer any questions you guys have. But we're going to go over how to manage your stress without overeating, overcome overwhelm, work through your body's cravings with all the stocked up food around, and then just being able to like see the light on the other side and just have more peace and control. And I think honestly, just having people around you to communicate with is huge, because we're kind of in isolation right now. I know I am. It's like my husband and my 3-year-old, my 1-year-old. So it's like, so just kind of going through that. So, and these are the same techniques I'm going to talk about today, are some of the same techniques that help me get through stressful times, without having to turn to food all the time. Because thinking about it, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be locked up at home with so much food around when I was struggling. So I was just trying to kind of put myself in that place of, man, like that would be really, really hard if I was in a place of struggling with food in my body, with just whether like stocking up or stockpiling food. So anyway, I want to set this time period up as best as possible. So we're going to cover 5 main topics today: dealing with uncertainty, how to deal and manage with stress, and how to like change the way you feel. There's a quick little exercise that you can change the way you feel, how to prevent emotional eating, and then braving your cravings. So, and staying out of the stocked up food pile, because even there, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about like the food scarcity mindset. And then some tools to make things easier for you. So let's kind of dive into dealing with uncertainty. So the first thing to do when dealing with kind of this big looming, it's unknown. Like it's kind of unknown right now about how things are going to turn out. When are kids going to go back to school? When are we going to get back to our normal lives? We don't know. That's, I think, one of the hardest things is not knowing. Yeah. So the first step with dealing with uncertainty is to accept that we just can't control everything, which I know it sounds like duh, but, and this is where there's a concept called iceberg beliefs. So it's like the big bone deep assumptions we have about how the world works come into play. So if you have an iceberg belief, like I should never be uncertain, like I should always be in control, or I know like everything has to stay the same, then, uncertainty can be especially challenging. But you can replace these beliefs with one that is more open-minded and realistic, such as, for example, like uncertainty is less than ideal, but I can tolerate it, right? It's tolerable. So even just kind of opening up some of those beliefs. So you can kind of take a look at like your thoughts. These deep-seated beliefs are going to come up in your thoughts. Like, I can't handle this, or I can't do this. I can't, I'm not strong enough to do this. Those are going to be some deeper beliefs that are kind of stuck. And instead of, when you find your mind going to those darker places, you can say to yourself, this is like, I will get through this. Or like, this isn't, I don't like this sucks, but we'll get through this. So just kind of being aware of some of those thoughts. And recognizing that there is only so much you can do right now. It makes you human, but not powerless, right? So things will unfold soon enough. And in the meantime, the way you treat yourself is in your control. So be kind to yourself. Another way to kind of get through like this feeling of unknown is to envision the best. And a lot of times people get stuck in like, they think about, I know I do this sometimes, is I think of like the worst case scenario. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna get coronavirus and die, and then my kids will be like, don't let yourself go there, right? So we can often like spare ourselves the disappointment by thinking about how things go wrong, but try to instead imagine the best possible scenario. So picture your surroundings and how it will feel like once this is over with. Like, okay, we're gonna come out, and like having some gratitude with it. And then reflecting. The third thing is reflecting. So just remembering that you faced uncertainty before. Maybe it's a different magnitude or a different caliber, but taking time to reflect on what did help you before and then write it down. And then you can read that out loud when you start to feel like that anxiety or those worried thoughts come up. The fourth thing is to avoid avoidance. So, and keep moving. Basically, if you know what you tend to avoid is dealing with the future, then remind yourself that although dealing with uncertainty is hard, there are consequences for not facing it head on as well. And then finally, the last thing with dealing with uncertainty is to see the possibility and just remember gratitude. Even in the hardest, the crappiest stuff, there's always a silver lining. And sometimes it takes practice to look for that. But that's why sometimes talking with a friend or getting outside of yourself and like calling up somebody like, okay, I need some like gratitude. I need something to be thankful for right now. Even if it's like tiny wins, right? Like this is what I work on with clients, is it can be the smallest little win. Like for me, like putting on like makeup today was a win, because usually my kids are, and it makes me feel empowered. So those tiny little things that kind of keep you in a normal day-to-day. I think having a daily schedule is still so important, especially dealing with uncertainty. So a way to manage stress and uncertainty, one last thing, is to kind of, as best as possible, keep a normal routine and schedule. So going to bed at the same time every day, like waking up around the same time, having yourself a kind of schedule and a flow that kind of keeps you through the day, rather than just like, oh my God, I have nothing. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now that I'm off work. I don't know if you've experienced that, Tammy, because I know you're not working right now.
Yeah, I'm just thankful for so many free things to do online right now.
Right.
With like exercising. Kim's doing the exercising, and
Yeah.
Hannah's started something too.
Yeah. So yeah, I think definitely like almost building yourself like a mini schedule. So like 9 to 10 a.m. is my workout time, and then 10 to 11 is my read this book time, and or whatever, you know, if you have kids, like for me, it's been, we do family workout time from 9 to 10, 10 to 11 is playtime, and like, you know, we watch a free, we've been reading books online and doing little activities online, right? So like having some sort of like loose schedule, whatever makes you feel like in control. Okay, so the second thing we're going to talk about today is how to manage stress and change the way you feel. So this is a really powerful exercise. And it's kind of like think about like a spiral, and you're spiraling up as far as like changing the way you feel. So the first thing to do when you're feeling is like to notice, like, I'm feeling kind of off. So that's the first thing you notice, is like, something like I'm just not feeling myself. And then you want to name your feeling. So are you feeling anxious, annoyed, stressed, overwhelmed? Whatever that feeling is, like name it, give it a name. Like, I'm feeling anxious. Sometimes that is enough to help you just be like, it's okay, right? So name your feeling, and then where in your body do you feel it? So for me, sometimes anxiety comes up in my throat, or my chest feels tight, or my stomach hurts. So just like getting where in your body is just bringing awareness to it. And then if it could talk, what would it be saying to you? So that one's kind of getting deep. Like if this anxiety right here, it's saying maybe like lately it's like you're gonna get sick, or it's like, what is it saying? It's like you can't handle this, or right, there's some sort of negative things that it's saying to you. And then the fourth step here is to ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? What is it that I need? Is it comfort? Is it connection? And then what small step can I take to meet my needs? So if you're needing connection, it's okay, maybe I need to reach out to a friend right now. That's what I really need. And then coming back to gratitude, like what's one small little thing that you're grateful for? That's a really great shift in energy, right? So if you're feeling like really, really depressed, a step above depressed is sad. I'm not saying like doing this exercise is going to be changing from depressed to like elated. One step above, right? Like our goal is just to keep stepping one step ahead, right? And then this is kind of a fun / weird exercise, but I promise it works, is to smile at yourself in the mirror for 30 seconds. It feels like eternity, I promise you, when you're doing it. Even if you're not happy, it's really hard when you're pissed off or you're unhappy, but it's like a fake, it doesn't matter. Just the act of moving these muscles in an upward motion triggers like responses in your brain to start the like endorphins. So even just fake smiling at yourself for 30 seconds in the mirror can help change how you're feeling. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how to prevent emotional eating. So finding ways to comfort and nurture and distract and resolve your issues without using food. Okay, so anxiety, loneliness, boredom, anger, these are all emotions that we experience through our life, probably a lot lately. And each kind of has its own trigger, but we all know that food won't really fix any of these feelings. It may comfort us in the short term or distract from the pain or even numb you into a food hangover, but it's not going to solve the problem. So if anything, it'll make us feel worse. And that's kind of what we're trying to avoid. We don't want to feel worse. But first, we must detect your vulnerability to eating problems. So it might not just be emotions. Many people believe that they're a compulsive overeater or that they're a binge eater because they watch themselves excessively eat. But before you explore the emotional connections you may have with eating, it's really important to determine whether your eating is actually based on difficulties you have with handling emotions, right? Or rather, is it a consequence of lacking self-care, or do you feel deprived from restriction or diet? So I see a lot of people that label themselves as like, I'm just an emotional eater. But a lot of times we have to look at like, is there other things that are in the way of you being able to deal with your emotions? I just want to say, David. Hi, David. I'm gonna mute you, okay? Okay. So that's what I kind of want to get into is with emotional eating, sometimes it's not all about just like you have a lack of willpower around food. There's some other things that are lacking, and we're going to look at those now. So if you have notes and you want to take notes, and either you're watching the replay of this training, if you want to take some notes, this will be helpful for you to kind of look at in your life to see do you really have an emotional eating problem, or are there other things that are lacking that is leading you to food, right? So if you're, like I said, if your self-care is lacking, it's hard to be attuned and accurately hear the inner cues of hunger and fullness. It just is. So there's a really powerful self-care assessment that I do with clients where we just kind of go through, it's in the Intuitive Eating Workbook. And I love this book using with clients, but it's really, you're looking at, okay, all the different aspects of my life when it comes to self-care. So let's go through a couple of those. Sleep. Probably one of the number one things is sleep. Like, how's your sleep? Do you go to bed at the same time? Do you sleep in a cool environment? Exercising during the day can help you sleep, avoiding caffeine in the afternoon, reducing alcohol, which is so hard right now. I know. I've had so many moms that are like, duh, like they're like have their coffee cup, like pouring in, vodka or something. Which I know is hard for all those moms that are like dealing with their kids from home from school. But even though alcohol seems like it does like help you fall asleep, it's hard for your metabolism to process while you're sleeping. So you actually don't sleep as well. Unfortunately. So like if you do have a drink, like maybe a few hours before bed, you can still have that drink, just not right before bed, because kind of your body's trying to process that. So sleep is a huge thing. Okay. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you are more prone to emotional eating. It's just going to happen because you're not able to handle emotions well when you're not getting good sleep. So there's a place to look. The next thing is life balance. I feel like this is what's really out of whack for people right now. What can you do to reduce the time spent on certain areas and give you more opportunities with other aspects of your life that you actually enjoy? And this is where pulling in gratitude for a minute. I feel like in my life personally, I was looking at my life balance. It was totally whacked. I was working all the time, or I was on my phone all the time, or rushing here and there to kids' activities, doing 10,000 million things. And now that I can't do any of that, it's like really kind of freeing. Like, oh, I don't have to rush anywhere. Nowhere to go. Zero places to be, zero places to go. And it's been like a really good sense of peace. So it's like almost my life is like more balanced in that area. Now in my like sanity, I need to go outside area, that's out of balance right now. But you can see how if your life is out of balance, or you're feeling really stressed in different areas, that it can lead to more emotional eating because your life feels out of balance. So that can be a place to look, like, where does my life feel out of balance, and what are some action steps I can take to feeling more balanced? The next thing, probably the number one thing, I think I've already said that, but the other number one thing, nourishment. This is huge with emotional eating. I think a lot of these things get overlooked when it comes to emotional eating. Is, are you eating in a slow, relaxed way? Are you bringing awareness to when you eat? Are you eating in a good eating rhythm? Do you eat high quality foods? I could do an entire probably Zoom presentation just on nourishment here. But really having a good eating rhythm. So having, eating breakfast before 9 a.m., lunches between 12 and 1, and dinners a few hours before bed, having a good steady rhythm, eating high quality foods, and then feeling relaxed and present with your eating are huge with emotional eating. I have a lot of clients that once they start really relaxing and slowing down with their food, they're noticing they don't need to keep going back to the pantry for chocolate because they're actually paying attention to what they're eating, right? So for example, I had a client who was just felt like she was eating chocolate all day. Like, I just feel like I need chocolate all day to like get by, to get through the day. And when we started slowing down, I said, okay, that's great. Like, I'm not going to take away your chocolate, but I want you to like sit your butt down and eat your chocolate. She noticed that she was way less likely to keep going back and back and back for chocolate because she actually was present when she was eating it. So when I say eat when you eat, right? So bring awareness. That can help a lot as far as like that emotional eating factor when you're actually present when you are eating. And if you hear kids in the background, that's just real life right now. It's like that 5:30 witching hour in our house right now. Okay, so the next thing when it comes to emotional eating and self-care is looking at your stress. So what are some ways you manage your stress? If your stress is out of whack, this is kind of like with life balance. If you're way, way, way stressed and your body is you're chronically in this low level state of stress, honestly, your metabolism cannot do what it's supposed to do. Your brain isn't getting the nutrient. Your brain is not like correlating and telling the rest of your body to take in nutrients because it's in a fight or flight mode. So we want your body to be in an optimal state of digestion, which means rest and digest, or parasympathetic dominance. So if you're constantly stressed, whether that's like work stress, life stress, or even just thoughts in your head, like, I shouldn't be eating this, or I'm so fat, what's wrong with me? Those are the same. Your brain basically takes on those levels of stress the same. Okay, physical stress and mental stress, your body reacts the same. So what are some ways that you can manage your stress? These are going to probably sound familiar to some of you, but I can't say it enough, like meditation, talking with a friend, therapy, especially online, like doing therapy online, online play dates. My friend and I did that the other day. We like put on Zoom and had our kids like scream and play on the video and read books to each other. Get moving, doing some exercise is a great stress management tip. Journaling. I use a meditation app called Insight Timer. Insight Timer app. And it's just like, it's great because you can search for, like for me, I'll type in anxiety and it'll bring up specific meditations around anxiety. So I can like do a meditation that's specific to what I'm dealing with. So that's another way. Any questions on self-care?
Is that a free app?
Yes, it's free. Yes.
Insight Timer?
It's kind of a weird name.
Yeah.
Yes. Insight, INSIGHT, Timer app.
Okay.
Yes, that's a good one. That's one of my favorites.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, the fourth thing is food scarcity and cravings. So this has come up a lot for right now, right? And this time is like food scarcity. Like I'm afraid that like if I don't stock up on all this food, when I go to the grocery store, there's no bread. There is a lot of toilet paper. That's a whole other thing. Like my husband is literally like taking 2 pieces and setting it on the toilet because, you know, kids just like my daughter the other day was like playing in the toilet paper and my husband about had a flip out moment. So anyway, so that's a whole other thing, scarcity thing. But around food and scarcity, if we operate from a place of scarcity, it creates like this sense of restriction and urgency. Okay, so if you are freaking out about not having enough food, or on another sense, like even if like, let's say you are totally stocked up, but you're still having this sense of food scarcity, even if food is not physically scarce, this mental scarcity makes our body feel restricted. And what does our body do in response to restriction? It triggers an intense like appetite or cravings, which means when we're around food that we are psychologically perceived to be scarce, right? So like, which mean, you know, basically those foods that we consider fat or bad or unhealthy or off limits, it's almost nearly impossible not to overeat or binge. Because your body, your biology is literally screaming at you, we're about to go into a famine. This is freaking me out. You better eat all this junk now because we need it on our body right now. Your body doesn't know like, hey, you know, you have plenty of food. Like the grocery store is right down the street. Your body doesn't know that. It's just responding to your brain and the mental scarcity, right? But what if you came instead from a place of abundance? So when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So when you see all types of food as abundant, and I'm saying like, you know, this is going to be in 2 parts, kind of 2 parts, because of dealing with coronavirus and then in general. So when you see all food as abundant, plentiful, and allowed, like all food is allowed, okay, and you keep those foods around you, you eventually get to a place where those foods just aren't as exciting. And you'd probably notice that, like, if I forced you to eat like a gallon of ice cream at night, you'd be like, all right, I'm over it. Like after a month, you'd be like, okay, I'm good. Like I seriously don't need any more ice cream. That happened to me with tilapia and asparagus. When I was competing, I was doing my fitness competition. I had tilapia and asparagus 3 times a day for like months. I have not touched tilapia ever since. That was like 5 years ago. I haven't touched it. Like I'm good. But even like certain like foods that I just was really, really, really loved, like I just got so sick of. Like for me, it was like peanut butter M&Ms. You know, it's like you eat them like all the time, all day. Eventually your body's like, okay, it's called the habituation effect. So that's just part of it is like your body just gets used to it. So the abundance helps you habituate to the foods, meaning you get used to them being around. And as a result, you end up wanting less of them and less frequently. And once you allow all foods an even playing field and get rid of that scarcity mindset, you're able to tune into your body and figure out what you really want to eat. So then when it comes to, you know, this coronavirus, I just did some research, according to the International Food Policy and Research Center, it says we do not believe at this stage that the new coronavirus will have major direct impacts on the supply of staple foods. But while there is no need for panic regarding imminent risk to food security, there's no reason for complacency either. So it's basically saying like, there's not a risk for a food shortage. Christine says, I love peanut butter M&Ms. Me too. Those are like my fave. And I went through a period of when I was kind of healing my relationship with food where I was just like always eating them. And I honestly can't even remember the last time I bought a bag. I feel like I'm just over it. I'm like, I'd rather eat something else now. So create an environment of abundance. Okay. So stock your house or your office, or well, most people are confined to their house right now, with foods that you consider off limits. So make a list of foods that are appealing to you, which food's your favorite. And then this is really powerful. You go through and you put a mark by the foods that you did actually eat, and then circle the ones where you've been restricting. So like start making a checklist of all the foods that have been restricted that you're like, oh my God, I can never eat that. Those are so bad for me. Peanut butter M&Ms, are you crazy? You know how much sugar is in that? Okay, cool. Go buy a bag, eat it, check it off your list, right? It's just, you're exposing yourself to like, it's okay. I didn't die. I ate some sugar. Okay. That's part of the process. It's a little bit challenging sometimes when you're going through the process, which I'm sure Tammy, you and Kim are working through some of those things too. It takes some time, but that's really on the way to food freedom. So basically giving yourself full permission to eat the food around you. And when it comes to the food scarcity, I think telling yourself when you're looking at your overstocked pantry, like those are going to be available. Like those chocolate covered coconut almonds are still at Costco right now. Like I can go buy some. I can still go buy some. They're still there. And if they're not going to be there, they're making more, like they just haven't gotten here yet. Like it's just telling yourself like it's okay. So reframing your thoughts about food. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we only have a few minutes for our free Zoom call. Okay, so last thing. So here's some tools. There are 3 main paths to learning how to cope with feelings without using food. Number 1, self-care, nurturance, and compassion. So, it's basic human needs. Again, sleep, pleasure, expressing your feelings, being heard and understood and accepted, comfort and warmth. Those are all like self-care and nurturing things. Like nurturing is like a level above, right? Like asking for hugs from people that don't have coronavirus, playing with pets, listening to music, reading a book, going out in nature, taking a bubble bath, meditating. These are all things that are nurturing to you. And then compassion, like having compassion and grace for yourself and coming from a place of curiosity, not judgment. So that's a perfect example of this is, oh my gosh, I'm back in the pantry and I'm still eating these chocolate covered almonds. Like, why am I in here? Instead of being like, God, you're such a fatty, get out of here. It's like, oh, I'm really stressed out right now. I didn't really have a nice lunch. I didn't sit down. I was totally rushed. And here I am back in the pantry eating these almonds, right? So you, instead of beating yourself up, coming from a place of curiosity, not judgment. The second thing is learning to sit with your feelings. This takes practice, but you take a time out and you ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Before you put food in your mouth, set a timer for 5 minutes. Explore any feelings or emotional triggers you're experiencing that might be causing you the desire to eat. And then asking yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Kind of like the feelings exercise we did earlier. And when the timer goes off, you take a moment to ponder if you still have the desire to eat. Okay, if the answer is yes, you need to ask yourself, okay, what do I actually need right now to deal with my current feelings? If it's like, I need quiet time, I need comfort, I need to feel connected, I need pleasure, right? A lot of times we turn to sweets and junk food because there's nothing else sweet in our life right now, right? So how can we add in some more sweetness into our life so we're not always relying on sweets, okay? And then asking yourself, how can I fulfill this need without turning to food? So and then connection, right? So if you need connection, if you're feeling at the end of this 5 minutes, you're like, I feel like I need some connection. Like that's where you ask for more time with your spouse or your friend. Like, hey, I need to connect and really feel heard and validated. If you're seeking pleasure and enjoyment, watch a good movie, a funny show at your house right now, pop yourself some popcorn, pretend you're in a movie theater. If you're really, seeking that pleasure. Lastly, this is one important point that is helpful when it comes to emotional eating is it's okay to be sad when you're done eating, when you're satisfied. So, you've probably had that feeling where you just finished like some chocolate covered almonds. Those are in my pantry right now and they're really good. So that's why I keep bringing that up. And it's like, okay, I'm full, but it's like, you're kind of sad because you want more, but you're satisfied. It's totally okay to feel sad that the meal's over. And this is where you can tell yourself, sit with those feelings, take a few deep breaths, and then remove yourself from the table and go engage in another activity. Okay. And then finally, with emotional eating, helpful distraction. And I know, yes, I'm saying distraction. And I know when it comes to learning to cope with your feelings with food, we have to be practical and realistic. So sometimes we just need a break. We need a break from the negative feelings. And, we need to find a non-destructive activity that can give us an alternative to eating, right? So sometimes a helpful distraction is the best thing, right? So you can make a list for yourself of things that you like to do that are a helpful distraction when you just want to turn to food even though you're not hungry. So watching a movie, putting on some music and dancing, doing a puzzle, a crossword, reading a good book, playing a game. I do give myself a 5-minute rule. So I did this today. I was just like, I don't really feel like exercising or dancing, but I'm just going to do it because I'm in a negative mood. I'm just kind of feeling in a funk. So I just put on a YouTube thing. It was like, you had to follow along and dance. I was like, I'll just do this for 5 minutes. And I ended up going longer, right? Because you get into the groove and you kind of let go. You're like, okay, I got this. And you end up going longer. So I just do like the 5-minute rule. I'm just going to like lay down for 5 minutes. And you're like, oh my God, I really needed that. And then for stress snacking, I'm going to go through this quick because Zoom will kick us off. For stress snacking, asking yourself again, what am I feeling right now? What feeling or relief am I hoping eating provides? And then what do I actually need at this moment that will support me feeling how I want to feel? A lot of times we eat to feel something that we're lacking. So what is it that I really need and how do I want to feel? So to wrap up, we talked about how to deal with uncertainty, how to manage stress and naming your feelings, where in my body do I feel it, and then ending with gratitude, smiling in the mirror. We talked about preventing emotional eating by doing some basic self-care practices. We talked about food scarcity and cravings, and then I gave you a couple tools to like sit with your feelings. So final thoughts. The tendency to eat emotionally can really kind of provide us with a strange gift. Anytime that you're craving food when you're not hungry, stop for a moment to appreciate that the urge is actually a voice from within, and it's letting you know that there's an emotion or need that needs your attention. So, and if we get kicked off, just click the link again, come back on, and we'll do some more question and answers, okay? But before we get kicked off, what questions do you have or things that you feel like you need to talk about with everything that's been going on? Or what have you been struggling with? And if you don't have anything, that's okay. Or if you want to message me later. Tammy, compassion and grace for other people is easier than for myself. Christine, yeah, being alone. Yeah, especially if you're alone in your house. Reaching out to a friend, doing some like face-to-face chats, I think would be really helpful. It's going to kick us off. So I'll come back on for a few minutes if you guys have any more questions, okay?